So I am here with Liam, aka Isaac Nightingale. We're going to talk about that, which I assume is a pen name, correct?
Of course, it is, yeah.
Okay. So he
Um,
is the author.
Pen name
Go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, just that's the pen name and the main character's name. So mildly confusing for some people, but yeah,
Okay.
mostly fine.
And Liam here is the author of B Movie Bloodbath, which is one of my favorite reads of the year. My sort of my journey into the book is that I signed up to be an ARC reader on Book Sirens, and it was actually the first book that I read on Book Sirens. And even though I read a free copy, I got myself a signed edition here, this beautiful little copy. Um, and thought it would be a great idea to chat with you a little bit more, learn about your writing process, learn about the project, learn about what else is going on. So thank you so much for joining me.
No worries. Thank you for having me and inviting me to do it. It's the first time I've ever done anything like this, so it's quite exciting.
Hopefully it will not be the last. So I actually feel like we were talking about this a little bit before we started recording, but as far as I can tell, it's an independently published book, and I feel like it's picking up a lot of traction on social media. I would love to take credit for being the first one to start singing the praises of the book, but you had like horror reads over on YouTube. Someone who's actually reviewed my book too. He was singing its praises early too. But yeah, how do you feel like the reception has been so far since it's been released?
So far, really good. Um, it's probably better than I expected. I thought it would just sort of be one of those things where friends and family would read it and then it would just sort of die off pretty quickly. But no, like um, it's there's people over in the States reading it and in different states as well, not just one or two, and that's quite impressive because I thought it would just be a local thing. So yeah, I'm quite impressed with how it's doing so far, and people seem to be enjoying it as well. So that's more than I could ask for.
Well, I am quite impressed with you because I'm going to jump around a little bit here. Is this your first officially published novel? Have you published anything before in the past?
No, this is my first novel. Yeah, I published a short story through like a competition, and that's available on a website called can't remember the website now. York Ghost Merchants.
We'll
So a
link
little
it.
business over here, and they ran a competition to put some little short stories on, like ghost stories. So I submitted one to that, and it ended up getting published on their website, and I got a little ghost figurine
Nice.
as a little prize.
Awesome.
So
Okay.
that was
Mhm.
it. This was the first novel that I've put out.
Well, we're going to circle back around to your budding writing career here. But talking about B movie Bloodbath, this it's a wild novel. To me it has two very distinct parts. It has a lot of different influences from B movies and grindhouse cinema and westerns, prison movies. So if you were to pitch this to someone that had no idea what it was, what would you say?
Honestly, I have no idea. This is the hardest question that anyone ever asks is what would you say if you're pitching it? And I can never do it. I usually just look at who's standing next to me, whoever's read it, and I'm like, can you help? Um, because everyone else seems to have a better idea of how to pitch it than I do. Um, which is a bit crazy considering I wrote the thing.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I would just say if you're interested in 80s B movies with lots of blood, guts, and terrible special effects, cheesy one liners, and or maybe a fan of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, then it's probably a book you'd enjoy.
Very good. I forget how exactly I described it in my review on GoodReads, but I think I said something like if you mix Shawshank Redemption and Constantine and Underworld and deep fry it, you might come out with something like B movie Bloodbath. Does that seem fair enough?
Yeah, totally. Um, Especially with the two halves of the book as well, like the complete different genre shift. It's it's very fitting. Yeah.
Well, where did the initial idea come from for the book? I almost said the movie because to me it reads like an 80s B movie, but where did the initial idea come from?
Um, it's a bit of an odd one. The first idea I had for it came from a song I was listening to, um, and I got like this overall. It's hard to describe, but like a lot of the chapters as well, they're based on the way a piece of music made me feel at the time, and the certain bit of music I was listening to just made me feel a certain way, and then I got the idea from the feeling from the music, if that makes any sense. And yeah, it just sort of developed from there. So really, just a piece of music was what inspired the entire thing.
Well, funny you say that because music is actually an integral part of the book. Um, at what point did you decide to actually put in track lists? Because so for anyone who has not read the book, I will set the stage here because this I think is one of the funnest aspects of the book is that there is a Spotify track list where you do a very good job getting around any kind of copyright infringement because all it does is it lists track one, track two, and then you go to the Spotify playlist. And I mean, sometimes you have to count it to keep in check, but the songs are actually they actually do blend in with the mood very well. You have tracks from like Bowie and there's like Night Call from the Drive soundtrack. Lots of really cool stuff. So when did you decide to integrate that into the book?
That was a thing that was there from the start, really. Like I said, with the idea for the book coming from a song, it's the same for every chapter. All of them are inspired by a song. Like say, some of it's a bit more obvious, like "Let's Dance" by Bowie.
Mhm.
Um, mm, I've got a chapter with the same name. So yeah, it just come from listening to a song and the idea that it gave me. So I thought it was a natural thing to do, just include the songs that give me the ideas for the chapter as a corresponding thing for people to listen to, like at the most fitting time that I felt to fit into the chapters to make it a little bit more interactive and cinematic. And it seems to have worked pretty well. So I'm quite happy about that.
Well, I do think a lot of writers they do listen to music as they write. I mean, I know I do too. So it's
Hmm.
actually you probably saw from my social media. It's an idea I stole for the last screenplay that I wrote. I'm like, yeah, I
Yes.
mean, if I can help somebody get in the headspace, kind of get the tone of what I'm going for here, why not?
Yeah. It's one of the ideas that I'm quite proud of
Yeah.
out of all of the book is sticking the soundtrack in there because like I thought it might help people experience it a little bit more as I intended if I stuck the song in there that I was mostly listening to while I wrote it. So
Right.
yeah, it's worked out pretty well.
And it's a pretty cool soundtrack too. So what about the inspiration for the title? Did you ever think about naming it something a little more specific? Because I got to be honest, the reason I read it in the first place is because of the title and because of the cover. I'm like, oh, this seems like something I would be interested in.
Yeah.
So what was that your intention, just to have a really eye-catching cover and title to sort of draw people in, or did you ever decide to do a different title?
Title wise, I struggled with the title for quite a long time. It had a different title originally, but it just didn't seem to fit.
Mhm.
Um, so I just kind of forgot about trying to find a name for it for a long time until I was pretty much finished writing it. And then one day I was just sitting and B movie Bloodbath popped into my head, and it just felt like that's it. That's the title.
Mhm.
Uh, can't go back on that now. It's what fits.
Well, you do call it the Bloodbath series of books, right? Is there going to be sort of like a Bloodbath kind of theme running through the rest of the titles in the series?
Mm, no, not so far anyway.
Okay,
Um, I'm, there's a little bit of alliteration. The second book has a similar kind of title,
okay.
whereas there's a bit of alliteration in there. But other than that, it's a completely different direction. Don't want to say
Awesome.
too much about giving it away.
Well, when are you, and I'm really jumping ahead here, but since you mentioned it, when are you hoping to put out a second book? Or are you just sort of taking a break at this point and trying to, market the first one, help it pick up some
Mhm.
steam, and then going back in and writing that second one?
Um, in terms of writing, it's pretty much done. Um, I've got a couple more chapters that I want to put in there, and then give it a good polish up because I think what I've got now is only the second draft, so needs a bit more work done to it. But after that, then should be all good. And I'm hoping if everything goes to plan, then I might have it out by the end of next year.
Nice. That's
And
awesome.
then yeah,
Great.
but we'll
Well,
see.
I'm personally looking forward to it. And again, that seems like a way we should have ended the interview, but we're going to keep going because we got some more questions here. Because one thing I'm really curious about is the way you decided to structure the book. Because I said earlier that to me it feels like there are two distinct halves. Like technically, these could be different books where you could have
Yeah.
the second part be something that's like it seems like a clear it seems very distinct, but still an extension of where we left the character in the first part. So, did you ever think about this as two separate books? Because there's something that happens right in the middle that is absolutely bonkers and sets this character on a completely different path than we first found him. But
Mhm.
I mean, the whole time the through line is revenge, right? So,
Yeah.
when did you decide it was going to have those two very distinct parts?
It was always a plan from the start, really. I don't think I'm not sure if I mentioned it before, but From Dusk Till Dawn was one of the inspirations behind the book, and like a lot of people have compared it to that as well. And that was fully the intent, fully my intention from the start was to have it be sort of like not so much supernatural for the first half, and then just go full on like all out supernatural on the second. Um, I wasn't sure how well it would be received because I thought some people might think it's a bit too much of a whiplash, but it seems to have worked out quite well.
Yeah, well, it's interesting you mention that movie because that one starts in a way where basically if you started watching halfway through and you only saw the first part of the movie, you'd think you were watching a completely different movie. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, so you talk about the whiplash, and I did want to talk about that too because you have some really dark themes and some dark content, but there's also kind of a through line of like a silly, goofy, comedic vibe. So I personally think it all works really well, and the darker stuff it never really seems too egregious to me. So were there any drafts of this book where maybe it was a little more violent, or maybe it was a little more funny, and you had to find a little bit more balance there.
Uh, yeah, actually. The first draft was a lot more violent. The humor, I kept the humor to be like a constant thing. I never really put more or less in at any point. It was just kind of what naturally came to me in the writing process. But the violence, I cut down on quite a lot of that for the final thing because it was a lot more graphic originally, and yeah, I just decided to get rid of some of it because I thought it was a little bit too gratuitous.
Mhm.
Even though there are some like exceptionally violent bits in the book, I thought I'll keep those ones in. But there are some that just felt a little bit more unnecessary, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, without going into it too much, there were some parts that that made me squirm. But again, I didn't think it was all that egregious. And just to set the stage for people who have not read the book and are watching this interview, we talk about bouncing around between different genres. You have, I mean, basically the first half is just full of like prison fights, and basically the main character forms like a gang with in cooperation with the warden, and he becomes kind of like the baddest dude on the block. And
Yeah,
then later in the book, you have this wild, kind of like supernatural neo-Western where you have haunted revolvers and like mini guns and car chases. It's pretty awesome. So yeah, anyone who's watching this, if you have not read the book, hopefully all those things I said have encouraged you to read it. Um, Okay,
yeah.
so I do want to ask you about sort of your writing process. How long did it take you to write this book? So from page one to, deciding like now's the time to publish it, you have the draft uploaded, ready to go. How long did it take?
Start to finish, 10 years. Um, yeah, started writing at like the very first moment of writing was midway through 2013. Um, I can still remember the exact time. I was on my way to work, sitting on the train, and I was bored. So I decided I'm gonna have a shot at writing a little story. And again, came from the song I was listening to. So yeah, I think I'll try and write a short story related to what's going on in this song, and just snowballed from there. And then from that point to me feeling like it was ready to be published, like was probably about 7 years. And then after that seventh year, it got to the point where I didn't really know what to do with it, so I just stuck it in a drawer for a year and let it sit there without looking at it. And then after that, decided to give it a shot, like to get it actually traditionally published by sending it out to a few agents. But again, it was probably about 8 months of doing that, and I decided I was sick of it because all I was getting was rejections because like all the agents were saying it's not what the market wants right now. Vampires and violence isn't really it's not going to sell basically. So I just decided, screw it, I'll do it myself in that case and see if there is a market for it. And then from then, put it away again for about another 6 months, and then decided might as well get it done, get it out there. I've made the decision to do it myself, so I'll do it myself. Then got the cover sorted, and that took a little while. And then, yeah, just slow little chipping away from then on, and eventually published it. Yeah, about 10 years altogether.
Yeah, well, it doesn't really surprise me that agents said it wasn't really what the market wants because quite honestly, I found, especially this year, I've been able to connect with a lot of really cool, interesting independent authors, and I find that a lot of the most interesting stories are independently published right now. I've actually found myself being a little disappointed with Trad Pub over the past year. So, yeah, I mean, and again, Book Sirens doesn't pay. Hey, if they want to pay me, cool. They don't pay me to say this, but I think it's a really great way to get exposed to a lot of really interesting authors and a lot of interesting stories. How has in terms of resources, like do you think Book Sirens was a good resource for you in gaining an audience, or is there anything else you wish you would have done in the advanced reader copy phase before it was published?
I think the only thing I would have done differently is do it sooner rather than the time I did, because I left it for about, I think it was about a month and a half before publishing was when I started looking for advanced readers. And I think that's the only thing I would do differently. Probably for the next book as well, try and get it out there about 3 months or so in advance, just to try and get a little bit more interest generated before it gets out.
Okay.
But Sirens was and still is a great way of getting it out there to people because, like you said, you found it on there, and a few other people have found it, and it's just been a great way to not not only just connect with other people as well, just get reviews in, get some connections. It's been really good.
Cool. So one thing you've been pretty forthcoming about on social media is sort of your struggles with mental health related to, writing and some burnout that you've experienced. One, now that the book's released, general question, how you doing?
Pretty good. Um, Overall, good. Anyway, a bit burnt out the past couple of weeks because it's just been really busy. Not only with the book stuff, like the book launch, and then taking a trip to New York, which I told you about in the past, and then getting back horror convention, which was again great, but it's just so much stuff. It's been tiring, so burnt myself out a little bit, having too much fun. Um, but I suppose it's good because even though I'm kind of exhausted, my brain is happy. So it's nice to be in a mentally good place, even though I'm tired.
Mhm. Yeah, well, considering it took you 10 years from the time you started writing the first book, and you're going on about how long have you been writing the second book at this point?
I think probably about 3 years. I think I started writing it in 2020. Yeah, yeah, like early 2020. I started writing it because I'd had the first one finished by then.
Okay.
Figured get straight into the second one. Um, so yeah, it's pretty much like I said, it's pretty much done. Um, and then hopefully onto something else straight away after this one.
And has anything changed about your writing process from the first book to the second book? Anything that you're gonna carry over into the third one? Things that are gonna save you a little bit of time? I usually find the first thing you write is usually kind of like the test run. Then you figure some stuff out so you can save a little time moving forward.
Yes, definitely planning ahead for me is a huge time saver. Because what I've done with the first one was I tried to write it like very out of sequence and just sporadically, and it took ages. Whereas with the second one, I sat down, planned everything out, so just a full outline of what I wanted to do, which where I wanted the chapters to go, and that helped massively. Like the writing process was so much faster for having done that than it was just being sporadic with it.
Right?
And being strict with setting my writing times as well. So if I say I'm going to write on a specific day, then do it and try not to stop until I hit a word count limit that I've set for myself.
Okay. Awesome. Well, as an independently published author, what would you say success looks like to you? So obviously you're going forward with another book, you have a series planned out. What success look like?
Honestly, I feel like it's successful already. I never really had any big plans for it. Um, yeah, it's successful enough as it is, I'd say. My initial thingy was as long as people enjoy it, then I've done what I've set out to do. Never really cared about selling loads of copies, and that would be nice, of course. But yeah, the whole plan was as long as some people can enjoy it, then I've done what I wanted.
Nice. And I should have asked you this earlier. What do you do for a living when you're not, writer Liam? What do you do?
Just work with my dad. He has a little family business, and just work with him there. We sell tiles in bathrooms. Doesn't sound all that glamorous, but yeah, it's quite nice. Get to work with my dad and really enjoy it. Pretty fun. And other than that, what else do I do? Pretty big into all kinds of hobbies. Like that's probably a problem. I have too many hobbies that kind of get in the way of writing at times. But yeah, just a bit of work and 15,000 other things to steal my attention away from writing.
Awesome. Well, one of the things I always like to leave people off on when I do these interviews is just asking, what have you been watching? What have you been reading? What are you currently reading? What should we know about?
Watching wise, not actively watching anything at the moment. Just kind of flip between watching films now and again. Last one I watched was Macbeth, the 2015 one with Michael Fassbender. Um, Other than that, hoping to go to the cinema soon to see the Marvels. Um, Reading wise, reading your book actually. That's the main one at the moment,
Thank you.
and yeah, which again I'll very much recommend because it is excellent.
Oh, that's very nice. But hey, I'm not the one being interviewed here, okay? You cut that out. I just saw didn't you recently pick up, I think this was you. You pick up the new Travis Baldree book, Bookshops and Bone Dust?
Yes, I did. Two copies because I've got to have two copies. They're both signed because I'm just a sucker for stuff like that.
Hmm.
Like one of them signed with a sprayed edge with blue and little skulls and crossbones and stuff.
I know
The other
it looks
one's got a
nice.
red sprayed edge,
We don't get that
signed and
in the
numbered.
States. I think it's a UK specific edition and it looks beautiful. So congrats.
There it is. Thank you. But yeah, I'm looking forward to reading that one as well. Really enjoyed Legends and Letters, which was odd because I didn't think it was going to be my kind of thing at all, but it very much was.
Nice. Okay. Well, is there anything else you'd like to say about the book, sort of get people interested in it, or you feel like you've said your piece?
Mm, Feel like I've said my piece, really. Unless more people want to keep recommending it to everyone they know, everyone that'll listen. Just buy the book.
Buy the book. Okay. Yeah, I'll tell everybody to buy the book too. That's what this interview is for, right? Okay, well, one thing I do have to say is that if somebody read the book, so me having read the book, I had a much different idea of who you were. I did
Mm-hmm.
not expect this very relaxed, mild-mannered person. Okay, so I like that there are two different sides of you. There's kind of like the wild writer side, and then there's this very, very chill persona. That's really cool.
Yeah, that's what people say a lot of the time. Like a couple of people who've read the book who haven't met me in person have said that I'm not what they expected because I am very much more laid back than I think my writing would make people believe.
Nice. Okay, well, Liam, thank you so much for meeting up with me here. Again, the book, I keep wanting to call it a movie, right? But the book is B-Movie Bloodbath by Isaac Nightingale, which is also the name of the main character. It's an awesome book. It's one of my favorites of the year. I think everybody should go pick it up and go find Liam here on Instagram and get yourself a signed copy. He might even, if you ask very nicely, draw a personalized picture, which I asked for, and he did.
Cool. It's quite fun drawing little pictures for people. And it's bizarre signing books. Didn't think I'd ever be doing that, but yeah, it's happening and it's great.